Good morning. This is Travis Marker. I'm with Steward Growth, and you're joining the Family Tree. It's a workshop relating to genealogy and how to do genealogy. I myself have been engaged in genealogy for many years. I love it. I love learning about the migrations of people as well as just the migration of my own family tree. And so today we're going to go through a tutorial on how to use Family Search. Family Search is a free service that is offered, and you do not need to subscribe to anything in order to have a Family Search account. The Family Search page is managed by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but you do not need any religious affiliation with the church in order to use their service. It is a tremendously vast service, and so you have access to lots and lots of records and lots of things that you can engage with. Um, I like it because it's free, and I think that I haven't lacked any opportunity to connect with my family as I've engaged this service. I know that some people use Ancestry.com and other services. I have no information to deter you from using those or continue to use those, other than these are free, and in a lot of ways have partnerships with Ancestry.com. So Family Search, I think, has a lot of also partnerships with those other services. But today we'll just start with Family Search, and I'll show you how to get going. So let me share my screen. So you'll come to this Family Search page. If you do not have an account, it says create a free account. It does not take very long for you to set up that account, and you can get going. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. So what you're seeing here is the opening page, or at least it'll show you what's. This is an example of a family tree that you can see. Um, I've been working on this other line, the Zap line. So some things to help you become aware with by way of just symbols and things that you're looking at. If you see these two little individuals, this means that the individual has more than one spouse. The green indicates that if you are a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the person has the option to have some of their work done in the temple. I do not necessarily worry about that. I just like doing a lot of the work and finding the families. So um, that part is not specific to this discussion necessarily. The most exciting part of the whole thing is these blue boxes. These blue boxes indicate that the name has records that could be attached to the family. So if you click on this record, it shows me that I have two records for Kenneth McDonald that could be attached. And so you could start with attaching these records. Also, if you want to extend the family line out, then you click these icons and it will open. So you can see how we can develop that out a little bit more. All right, then let's say that we let's start with this Frederick Charles Sapp. So over here, the page opened up and I can now see some basics for that for Charles. I can see his birthday, his death date. Also up here, it says there's already 5 sources that are attached. So I can see those 5 sources that are already attached. One of the cool things about um, looking at their sources first is it will also show me if there's unfinished names attached. So if a source is already attached and there's unfinished names, there might be somebody that could have additional records attached. In this case, it looks like he has his wife and a daughter. So if we seek to attach that, we can do that. This side over here, on the right side of the screen, is information that is already in the family search system as part of their record. The information that they're letting me add would be new information. This is a census record. So I would add that a lot of census records are not perfectly accurate. They often will round up a year. So even though this says the birth year is 82 and the census record says the birth year is 83, that is super common for the birth year to be greater than the initial birth year. So I'm going to add this record. I'm going to add that information to the record. Also, we have, it looks like the daughter, again, her year is rounded up, but otherwise the information on the left side is pretty close to the information on the right side. And we have other corresponding individuals on the record that are the same. So Fred is the same as Frederick, like that would be an acceptable abbreviated form of Frederick. Myrtle sounds pretty similar. The Zaf would be the married name versus the maiden name, which is in the current record with the family search. So we can add this information. All right, and then I can go back by closing the screen. I can go back and we'll look at the next record. So it looks like the only one not added on the next record is the daughter again. So we'll add that her residence in 20 was in Detroit. We'll close that. Now, one of the things that's also cool about the record is I can view my relationship with this person. It does not currently show that I have a relationship with the person, but that just could mean that we haven't done enough work yet. If we also look at the family tree, we can see how many generations it goes back. So the Zaff family goes to England, but it cuts off in 1814. A lot of my family does go back to England, so it's not impossible. We may eventually connect, but it looks like we're at 1808 and here. So if I attach these additional records, it may eventually connect to my family. If you look at the line from Marie, it goes to also back quite a ways. It looks like we go into Canada. And then it looks like it'll probably go to France. We're eventually going to get to France. So it does not look that my lines go directly through these families. I do have a grandmother, a maternal grandmother who is, she comes through Canada, but it doesn't look like that relationship currently exists, which is okay. It may take some time to create that. I got to this Zaff family as I was working some other lines. And what I do is follow the blue boxes just because I like attaching records and it helps me feel like I'm, participating and at least adding information. And I realize that a lot of times it's like mining. So you just keep going until you make the connections. Because oftentimes, like if you look at Myrtle Sterling, she has a record. It does not show that she has parents here yet. However, she was born in 1882, so it's not impossible that she does not already exist inside the family search system. We just haven't found a duplicate yet for that, so that we could connect her side of the family. But we're gonna work on that in a second. So if we stay with the Zap line, it looks here that he has a daughter and she has a record, and we have two records. And then we have all the way up to Patrick. Looks like a child a child that was born and then died as a baby. So let's go to Eleanor for a second. She also has an unfinished record, so we can look at that. In this case, it's for a brother and sister who were born after 1930. My general rule is that these individuals could have died, but generally after 1930. In this case, that would make them, as of today's date, uh, 93 or so. Let's just find out for sure. Yeah, 93. So if a lot of people do not live necessarily after they're 90, so they could be dead, but we don't know that. So I would probably not create a new record yet. If we look at this next one, we have similar information, but again, there's nothing clearly saying that these individuals are dead, so it's probably okay that we haven't created that record. We're going to create a record in a minute, and but let's first, I want to attach these records that are already available for her. So if we go to details, we have her grave. Now, what's cool about the grave is that there may be information on the find a grave index that may help us. So I attached that record and there wasn't anything new, but over here it allows me to view the original information, and it says we're going to go to find a grave website. On find a grave website, it gives me this additional information that may not already exist, particularly the cemetery may not already exist. So I will copy that information and I will go over to this record on family search, and it does actually already have Lakeside Cemetery. So I don't need to connect that. But what I can also look for is individuals who may also have already died that may not have done that. So she married David Johnson, and he said he did die in 1983. So if we look at the family record, by scrolling down, they do have David as dying in 1983. So that's not new information. But if we come down even additional further, sometimes it will add additional family members who may also have died. In this case, it did not add any additional family members specifically through there. It does say in this obituary, she was preceded in death by a son, Patrick. And we've already seen that Patrick's record um, they've already shown that Patrick died. Patrick Arthur Johnson, he's already in. So this record is good. Another thing we can do is you can take this information from the obituary and you can add it to a category inside this record called a brief life sketch. So let's see if we can find that. I think it's going to be here under other information. Does not look like that's where it's at. Let's try about. I usually use this on my phone. And so when I wake up in the morning, I will take some time just to kind of lay there and do some family search. So I don't always have the laptop version or the computer version. It looks like a lot of the information that is included in the obituary is in this brief life history. There is an option to add additional information to that. You can also add, like, so here we have a picture of her that was added, and that contributed to her profile picture. So let's go back here to details because we have another record that we can attach. This record shows where she was at before she was married. So this adds her parents who are already in the system. But we can add this residence in Michigan. Again, it's showing us her brother and sister who are in the 1930s. So we're not going to add that, but we'll add this information. Okay, so it looks like so far we've been able to add the information for Eleanor that is consistent with, and we're going to refresh the screen just so we can see if any additional records pop up. Sometimes when you add information, then it may pop up because a lot of the records are found through algorithms through the family search site. So it doesn't look like any new information was added. However, we still have, and it's also showing us if I go through David, I can see if I'm related to David. In this instance, I am related to David. David is my 12th cousin twice removed. Now, what that means is he's the 12th cousin with my grandma, Lily Farrell. So they are 12 generations down, 12th cousins down. And then from there, there's two additional steps. So that's how they do 12 cousins twice removed, is that I'm two steps away from where I what from the relationship to my grandma. If we go back to that, this also shows me who my common connection was. And so the common connection is in France. So even though I was showing you on one of the SAP lines, the line goes to France, it doesn't necessarily mean we're all related. So um, they are connected in Normandy, France, in about 1571. That's where this individual is from. All right, so I'm going to close that window, come back here. So on the Johnson side, it looks like we are related. On the SAP side, it's not clear. But let's keep working with the SAP line. So I can click on this show all, and that will open a page that allows me to open up these two records at the same time. So I can open that record up, and I can come back up, and I can open this record back up. And then I can set this page backwards, and I can open up just Harold's page specifically, so I could work with that. So then if I go back here, it looks like we have the death and birth date are the same. I'm just adding in some information from a social program claim. Then we have some information here on the birth certificate. So what you see oftentimes is names flip-flopped. So Chaz is abbreviated of Charles. F would connect with Frank. Myrtle is directly on, and Sap obviously is the mother's maiden name versus her married name. So those two we know are good. And then we have Harold F, which is consistent. It gives us a full birth date that's the same. And we have Marine City. Now, just because this says East China Township, St. Clair versus Marine City, I don't exactly know how close those are or what would be the reason for the difference. It might be the hospital location, it may be another thing, but St. Clair is the same county. So I'm going to still attach that as an accurate record. Another thing we can do is if I click on this record by itself, it opens up, and sometimes in this section over here on the right, it will show me if there's any additional or similar records, because even though it may not be a blue box, sometimes if I come down to the bottom, it still might show me um, that there might be other similar records that for some reason are not being shown at the moment. So I'm gonna go back to his record, and we know that his wife, his mother, does not have a spouse. So let's just, I mean, parents, has a spouse clearly, but let's see if we have parents. So I'm going to do this Frederick tree and just see if we've got everything shaped up for him. It looks like we've gotten all his blue boxes. We have not done, uh, we haven't done Louisa's second husband, Gauthier, but since I'm working on the sap line at the moment, I'm gonna let that go. So if we do Frazier, he has just one record, so we're going to go ahead and attach that. Looks like this record adds a wedding. We have McKinsler and McKinstry. Um, One thing that happens a lot with Irish and Scottish names is things get, for whatever reason, mixed up a little bit, but it's pretty close. And it's also could be the fact that we're talking about people who write in script or in cursive, and it may or may not be legible. But we have Violet, which is on point with this record, so that works out. But let's see if Violet's husband is, because this is a marriage record for Violet, and this husband is not a part of this record, but clearly is married to her. So this is a second husband. So we can take this information. So if I highlight that black triangle, I can now take this record number and I can click on that, and I can close this record, and I can pull down here because we're going to Violet. And in this relationship, I can add a spouse. Now, instead of going to this name and adding in the information specifically, since I have the record number, I can click on the record number and I can cut and paste that in there, and that pulls up this individual. And now I've added that based upon the record we've already seen that said they got married. Now, it's her second husband. It could also be his second husband or his second wife. The William Keene, it doesn't say when he died, so we don't know if it's a divorce or not, or a death. So if we go to Violet and we look up to her, we go up to this information about, we go to her sources and we go to marriages. This shows the marriage for Keene. So that's not the one we're looking for. We want to find the second marriage. With Frazier, with Tinch, and it says 26 in Ohio. So 26 in Ohio versus the 1927 in Ohio. So Inch is actually her first marriage. So we come to details. We don't know what happened to Inch specifically, but we know that they did get married and we have that information in the record, even though it didn't add. So we can add event and I can copy and paste. The nice thing about family search is I can collect a bunch of data and it will only pull out the data that is specific. So in that case, it's looking for a date and it found the date. Here we have Lucas, Ohio. So it deletes the information. We go with that. All right. So now we've added this information. So we have the first marriage, we have the second marriage. So we don't know if, and we look here, he died in 1932. So it was not super long after, but it looks like it was probably a divorce. We don't have the divorce record. So we could keep looking for the divorce record. But at this point, I want to go back to the ZAP line and not be necessarily too distracted by the additional lines. The nice thing is you can be on here forever and it's super fun. And I have definitely had days where I am on here forever. And it's just kind of like doing a puzzle and on rainy days and things like that, it's nice to just sit and do a puzzle. But again, we're going to look here at the zap line because it looks like we could continue to work the Fraser line, but we're ultimately looking here at the zap line. So I want to come back here. So let's go to Myrtle Sterling. So the two records that are currently showing are for her as married. So we may have to come back and find the ones that identify her maiden name. But right now we can start with, oh, and we do have that she was born in April of 80. So that might help us focus in. Again, this is a census record, so it may or may not be perfectly accurate because they do estimate. However, this says December of 77, where we actually know he's 79. So April may be relevant on the Sterling name, but let's just go with this initially. So, and what we're seeing on this record is that it's most likely not tremendously legible, but we are getting pretty close with the names by way of Zap and Charles F. And we have Harold, again, not tremendously legible, but, and this is again a second record where we see Marine City instead of East China. So that makes me curious about whether it's Marine City more consistently. Because what we can do is we can click on this record here and it'll show us Marine City, Michigan, Michigan. So when somebody typed in East China, it was apparently an estimate, but we have two records that are showing Marine City. So we're going to go with Marine City because that appears to reflect the more accurate record. All right, let's go back to the mother. So somewhere somebody called her Mary Sterling. So we're going to try to find out why. So Lori Moore, if we look here, Lauren Moore was the individual who entered that information. It also shows us that Paula Rawl has also participated in this record. Kelly Allen has participated, and I've also added some information that's showing our names. So if we go to Myrtle Sterling, it's not clear why they're saying her name is Sterling because there's no record that currently reflects that. But there's a chance that Lauren has some specific information that would reflect it. Let's go to the sources. The census records are all post-marriage, so they're not reflecting it. So one thing we can do is if we go to details, we can click on this family search button and it will show us all the records that are inside family search. And currently we have a hit that looks like it's not connected to that this individual, Myrtle Sterling, is not already connected to this other lady, but she exists inside the system. So we need some corresponding information that would connect us to there. So if I go back to Myrtle Sterling, it has 1882 as her birthday. This is 1884, 1884, 1884. So we already know that it's not impossible that this is accurate, that it's September of 84, and the information presented just hasn't been correlated correctly. But we also have Myrtle being married to other people potentially, so we need to find a better connection directly to the SAF line. So Myrtle Sterling is showing up. So I'm going to take this information and put it here so that her name is not necessarily left. I'm going to add it as a middle name rather than a married name. And we're going to go SAF and see. All right, so the records for SAF are showing up. We have another in here where they spelled the SAF incorrectly, so we'll add that. Again, they don't have the birth date exactly correct. It could be off by 3 years, or it may be right on. So add that one. Now we have Myrtle S. Staff. This seems to be the same person, which would show that her middle name or her married name could be, but then this says widowed. So that means her husband died. So I think that is safe to say it's still her. But now what I'm looking for is I want to find an index record for her death or even for her husband's death, because that may transfer us over to the family, the find a grave index. And on the find a grave index, it may show that her name is Sterling. So I think we have a fairly high likelihood that we may have found her record, except that it's 2 years older. So we're not clear yet. So it's not like we want to just jump that right in. So let's see if we can find in his record a find a grave. And we know that he died before that last record. So let's see what we can find. All right, we got find a grave. So this is awesome. So we can add that. And then we can see if his we have the burial at St. Clair, but we also know it's Hillside. So we can add this information. And now I can scroll down here and go to the find a grave site. And we have Myrtle, but this says Myrtle W. So at least we have Myrtle and Myrtle W Saf. So we can click on that, which shows her dying in 68. So we can add that information. So let's start with adding information to Myrtle's history. So we're going to go back to Myrtle. But we also have W. So a W is added, which could change things a little bit. We don't know what the W means, but it's written in stone. So that's like, that tells us it's what it is. So we're going to type in her burial cemetery. And we also know it's 1968. She's buried in Michigan, so we could say she probably died in Michigan. We don't know where she died in Michigan initially, but let's go with this. Now, since we added this information, let's see what happens. Nothing happened yet, but it does show Harold Saff, so it does connect them, but we don't yet have any information on her parents. So another thing we can do while we're on this page is we can click on this cemetery and we can type in the word Sterling, and this will show us everybody in that cemetery who died named Sterling. So there's not so many. It's like there's 8, but it's possible that she's buried in the same cemetery as her parents. So let's connect this additional record here. Now, what would have been nice is if we could look at this sources and we could find a marriage record for them. So far, we do not have a marriage record for them. So let's see if we can come back here. You can refresh. So they're saying based upon the information provided, they might have a missing child. So we could still do some search, but let's see if we can find something with Sterling in it. All right, I'm not seeing anything with the Sterling in it. So now that we've added some information to her account, let's see if we try this again and see if we can find a death record. Because Find a Grave does a fairly good job about making sure um, a record is attached. So let's just see. This again. So I'm not necessarily seeing any new records. Let's see if they added the death date. We have a marriage date, the death date. Okay, we also have the option to do a filter. Or we can say, if I just want to see death records. So it didn't filter all the other ones, but so that's kind of tricky. We're not sure why we're not finding. Usually, when you put in family search like that, you put in the death record, something comes up. So that's pretty interesting that it did not come up. So one of our options is to also work to see if there's a gap over on the other side. So this record came up for her. It's already attached. So we can see this way. if it connects. Now this is a Myrtle L, so that doesn't help us, but this record could help us because the Social Security information will give us every name a person shows up under. So in this case, we have Myrtle, Esther, Kirby. So this is a daughter. It does give us a name to add. So let's connect here. Okay, we're going to add. Now we also have marriage record. So let's see if her marriage is already on here. So her marriage is already on here. So we can still add this record. So let's go back to Myrtle L. Myrtle L is not showing a second husband. So this does not appear to be our Myrtle. So I'm not exactly sure why we can't find the Myrtle. Sometimes that's what it is on these records. Let's look here again. No Social Security. So I don't know why she called her Sterling, or may not be Sterling. We're not able to find that connection. So, but at this point, let's go over here to Vada. So she is born in 1903. So we should be able to find some additional records for her. Oh, we got a possible duplicate. So this is good. Review the merge. Now the information on the right, again, is what already exists inside. The information on the left is the stuff that would be added. So it looks like what would be added is a marriage. So we're going to continue to go forward with this because her name doesn't change. The birthday is really close. It adds some records. It adds a spouse, and it adds a daughter. The daughter's in 1930, so that's still fairly likely that she's passed. So that seems fine that she's got that. So then for the reason for the merge, we're going to say adds marriage. And you have to add that in there. It will not allow you to finish. So we'll finish the merge. I could have also said adds child as well as, but I just needed a reason for it to finish. So that's good that we have marriage. It looks like we still need a death. We still need a burial. So if we look at these sources, see if there's anything unfinished. Looks like we do have an unfinished. In this case, it's Sarah's, one of the daughters, and then Charles. Now, you probably could take a risk on the men. They don't seem to live as long as the women, so there's a chance that Charles could be dead. But I stick with the idea that if it's not 1930, I usually don't do it. So we do have a daughter. So this is going to add a marriage for the daughter. And it also gives us more information on her birthday. So I can attach that record. I can also open up just this record in a separate window. So I can go over here and add in that information. Again, it pulls out just what I want from Gross Point. And you can see that's supported by this record right here. And I can close that and come back here and we can add the marriage. So if I click her name, it rotates the priority. So instead of Harold or Vada being the priority, now Sarah's the top priority. That's the person I'm working with. Her husband was born before 1930, so I'm okay adding that. When I click add, it gives me information I can add over here. And I need to identify that he's dead. The reason I'm saying he's dead is it's fairly likely that over the age of 90, he is dead. He may, in fact, not be dead, but generally speaking, he might be. And let's say he ends up being living and somebody comes along and finds out that he is living, they can rotate the record back to living, which would protect his record. But now what I need to do is make Glenn the priority, which will add his parents above. So now with Glenn, I can add his parents. So I want to pay attention. So I take his record number and I'm going to look for Carol as well as Glenn, Carl as well as Carol. So I created this new record and I go to details. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to add a parent. And I picked his dad's name. So I'm going to put his dad's record here. But then that's going to also allow me to add the mother because she already exists inside the dad's record. So I want them to go together. So I'm selecting the couple so that they both exist. Now she has a longer name, Gott Collins. It's most likely her maiden name is Gott and Sweeney's her husband. And then we have Collins being a second husband. Now, if we look up here, we have some records for him. So he is dead. So our hypothesis, my hypothesis works out to be correct. He died in 2004. So nearly 20 years ago. So I'll add that information. It also adds that, he has his parents. And I was correct that her maiden name is Gott. And so Sweeney and Collins are second husbands, which means we could delete those names because under the family search system, it's not, everything works off the maiden name. So it doesn't hurt us to have those names there, but they're also kind of a distraction if you're looking for the maiden line, the maiden name line. Add that information. Okay, so now that we've added more information, we can refresh and see if anything else comes up. Looks like nothing else comes up, but we have a death date. If we want to find out where he's buried, we can try again the family search records. We have his parents and his marriage. We have his parents. We have his marriage. Looks like he has a second potential marriage that was earlier. Well, he would only been 9 years old, so that's not him. This record is him because we have Carl and Cora. So let's add that record. I'm going to shut this. So they're already attached. And it looks like we're able to add some additional names. However, those names are kind of over here. So we want to find out why they're not connected. So the dad may have been married first. So if we go to the dad, those names don't show up. If we go to Coral, Coral has a few more things going on over here. We have more people that could be connected. We still have Edith. So if we pick Edith, because her birthday is not identified, but she is identified. She's connected to somebody already. So is William. And it looks like they're connected. Oh, it looks like we have a duplicate. So Carl W is a duplicate record. So we can go back and fix that, but we can add this information while we're here. And we can add William. And we have Glenn. So it looks like Glenn is also a duplicate, but we can add Betty. And Betty's most likely Elizabeth, but we don't have that information yet. So I'm okay leaving it as Betty. But she's also born before 1930. So I'm okay creating a record for her because I anticipate that she has passed away. So we need to go do a merge. So if we take this Carl Wayne Sweeney and we connect him to Wayne Carl, then we should be able to have a duplicate. Yep, we have a duplicate. We're going to review the merge. So we're going to say yes. We're going to leave with Carl Wayne because that appears to be what he's going by, but anybody could switch that if they wanted, if they think the records reflect that. We have the marriage to Alice, and this adds a marriage date. The marriage date is before the birth of the children. That adds our second Glenn, and it adds his parents, and it adds a bunch of records. So it looks like majority is Carl. Looks like there's a couple of Waynes that they switch over. I say adds marriage and children. Yeah, it looks like before we take off from this one, we can go down here to Glenn, copy Glenn's ID. So I click on that, which copies it. The screen tells me I copied it. I go up here to Glenn, go to person. It's not showing as a merge. So then what I do is I come down to merge by ID, put in the ID. Again, we have the people on the right, people on the left. We know it's going to be the same, but we go through it slowly. Male. So most of the record exists in the record that we created with Sarah Moss. Continue that. Let's say adds information. It doesn't add a lot of information, but it adds some information. So we'll just make it general. Okay. So it looks like we've got at least his record sorted out. If we come back here to Collins, we have an issue because there's a child born after her marriage. Child not that mean born before the mother. So 1905. So that's showing up in this Alfred Collins potentially, or in Dickerson or Altenburg. So I don't know. Like I have no idea what's happened with all this. We got also Harry Gott. He looks like he's got some different marriages. So you might come to a record that looks like Carol's, and I didn't create it, but it looks like there's plenty of duplicates that could be worked out. Looks like there could be Ella's the consistent thing, like the Ella's the consistent mother, but her last name is Gott, so it looks like Gott should be the mother. So it looks like William Hoover may need to be deleted. but I didn't create all that. So sometimes when you look at it, you just like, I appreciate there's a mess, but that's somebody else's mess. And people can be tremendously, they can get tremendously upset about their trees. So sometimes you just leave well enough alone because it's not your mess. And you don't have to solve everybody's stuff, right? Okay. So if I come back, I went to recent so I could kind of go backwards and check where I've been. I want to work with the SAP line. So that's why I went back to SAP. So I'm here. I think that's been a good hour. So I appreciate those who've joined with us today, most likely on YouTube. We didn't have anybody join us today on the recording of Zoom. I enjoy family history. If you ever have any questions about family history, want to know more about it, you can connect with us through the Steward Growth website, stewardgrowth.com. You can also connect with me through my website, Marker Law Mediation. My email is markerlawmediation@gmail.com if you want to ask any family history questions. Uh, but it's been a pleasure to kind of explore this today. If you have any family history questions you'd like to work with in another time, feel free to engage with us. You can also go to Marker Law Mediation or stewardgrowth.com, and you can see the other classes that we have that provide people information on the services we offer. This is just one of the classes. But for now, we're going to sign off. I hope everybody has a great day.